What's happening, guys? It's VenomousFatman here again. I'm still here on the BITT, the boys in the tube. I'm sitting down right now with Andrea Rene. And before we were just talking about, industry stuff, video game industry stuff. What's it like being a video game, being part of the video game industry. So now we're going to talk about everybody's favorite subject, the games. So let's start, Andrea, let's start a little bit much more contemporary stuff. Let's talk about, within like the past couple of years and things like that, what has been some of your most favorite games that you wanted to play?
In the past couple of years?
Yes, in the past couple of years.
Oh, well, by far, the standout for me was Mass Effect 2. Most certainly. I've dropped a lot of time into that game, and Mass Effect 3 is definitely one of my most anticipated games of 2012, but I also really love Borderlands. That game, I've been doing a lot of online co-op play. That's been really fun as well, and just like all around a really enjoyable experience, like getting to play with other friends, doing all the loot grabbing and killing all the bosses and everything. It's just such a fun world, and the art style in that game is just so unique. It was such a breath of fresh air in the shooter environment to get a game like that. But I also really loved Portal 2. Really great game that came out this year. Obviously, Valve knows how to make a fantastic game, and the follow-up was fantastic. And I can't wait until the DLC comes out. I think they've been teasing that forever.
Yes.
It's supposed to come out, I thought, sometime this month, but Valve has been kind of mum on it now. So I'm looking forward to playing some more of that as well. They also have another kick-ass co-op option. So there's a couple that I've really loved over the last year and a half, 2 years.
That sounds pretty cool. Now, you mentioned Mass Effect, and you also mentioned Borderlands. I'm going to kind of step away from Portal 2 for a second here. Let me ask you, what type of genre of video game do you mostly gravitate to? Because Mass Effect is pretty much an RPG. Borderlands has a lot of RPG elements to it, even though it is primarily first-person shooter. And then you have something completely different, Portal 2, which is first-person shooter. So what is the genre that is really for you?
I don't think I have one that's really for me. I mean, that's the beauty about games, is that there's so much variety. I would never want to say I'm just an RPG fan, or I'm just a puzzle platformer, or I'm just a shooter, because now with the way that creativity is happening with these development teams, you're getting so many crossover games. I mean, like, Borderlands was called a role-playing shooter, and Mass Effect is clearly an RPG shooter hybrid. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's where you kind of are able to kind of tap into that, ability to appeal to a crossover audience is by having a hybrid game. I mean, you can look at hardcore first-person shooters and see they have a very distinct audience. But when you bring in an element like Borderlands had, with the RPG, with the co-op gameplay, with the progression and the character progression, the skill trees, and all that stuff that comes along with an RPG, you're kind of giving it the dynamic and appealing to a crowd that maybe wouldn't have picked up that game at all if it had just been like Call of Duty. You know what I mean? So I don't think that I would ever put myself into that kind of like I only play this kind of game box, and I'm really glad that developers aren't forcing people to be in those boxes either.
So to kind of go off from that, because you said you're pretty much a well-rounded gamer when it comes to genres and stuff. But let me ask you about consoles, because it seems like now more these days, either you have your pick of whatever console that you're going to play with, or you got pretty much multiple consoles. Does that same type of philosophy that you have, when it comes to video game genres, does that also carry over to the type of consoles that you usually, gravitate towards buying or getting or actually playing games on?
Oh, absolutely. Most certainly. And people ask me that all the time. What's your preferred console? What do you play on most? And I say, I have everything. I have a Wii. I have a PS3. I have an Xbox 360. I don't have a high-end gaming PC, which is like next on my list to get. Yeah. But I have to save up some money for this because they're not cheap.
Yes.
But I honestly am of the philosophy that each game is suited for a different console. You know what I mean? Like, each game has their pros and cons on each console. And I refuse to take part in this Xbox versus PS3 war that's out there. Like, there's Xbox loyalists and there's PS3 loyalists. And I'm like, why can't I have both? Why can't I enjoy both consoles for what they're good at? I get games that I know I'm going to be heavy on multiplayer for my Xbox, because that's where most of my friends live, is on Xbox Live. And I get games that I know that I want maybe a more single player, graphic heavy, high powered experience on my PlayStation, because I know that's what PlayStation does well. Not to say that Xbox can't perform graphically standing, and not to say that PS3 can't perform multiplayer standing, but that's just my preference personally. But I use them both regularly. There's a lot of Sony exclusives that I love. I love all of the Pixel Junk titles. I'm playing Resistance 3 right now from Insomniac. I'm really loving that. Really looking forward to the God of War collection that just came out this week. And then the same, on Xbox. Gears of War is coming out next week. That's a Xbox exclusive title. And then we got, of course, got the Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition coming out in November. So I think both consoles have their ups and downs. The only thing that's kind of dragging for me right now is my poor Wii that's been collecting dust. And it's not because it's a bad console, it's because it has a very specific purpose. And in fairness, Nintendo has kind of let it fall by the wayside. They haven't had a AAA release on the Wii for at least 3 to 4 months. I can't even remember the last one. I think the last one was Conduit 2.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
That came out on Wii. And obviously they have Skyward Sword coming out in November, which is, going to kind of revive it a little bit. I don't think it's going to save it. I think clearly it's on a downward slide with the anticipation of Wii U coming out.
So in defense of your Wii, really quickly, will you be actually checking out the Wii U or buying a Wii U?
I don't know. I think, I got to first look at it at E3 this year, and I'm not sold on it right now. I think there was a lot of razzle-dazzle in the announcement at the Nintendo press conference at E3 with Wii U, and the little video they put together certainly made it look really cool. But when I got up close and personal with it, was I blown away by the graphics? Absolutely. They looked great. But graphics also look great on the PlayStation 3. They also look great on a PC. So not really like breaking new ground there. They're just really catching up in that department. But as far as this controller goes, it really is like the size of an iPad. It's gigantic. It's not comfortable to hold. It's relatively heavy considering, what they could be doing with the technology. And they really weren't showing off that much. I kind of like the idea that you can be playing a game on your television and then transfer that game to the wireless controller and then take that with you as a portable device. But I don't know, how, if you have to be connected within a certain range. There's just, so many unknowns about it yet. And I think next year, Nintendo will really start to roll out some more details about Wii U, and then we'll be able to make some more informed decisions. But right now, I'm really kind of on the fence about it. Especially considering that PlayStation has made these huge announcements about the fact that Vita is going to be compatible in almost the same way with the PlayStation 3, with, double the processing power. So, I don't know. I think Nintendo's going to have a hard time overcoming that.
All right, fair enough. So, kind of springboarding off of that, let's talk about portables, because everybody usually gives a lot of shine, to the main big three consoles, Xbox, Wii, PlayStation 3, etc. But let's talk about, Vita, since, you mentioned it, and let's also talk about 3DS. How do you feel about those two portable gaming devices?
Okay, certainly. Well, I have a 3DS. I bought it, during the price drop shenanigans. And obviously they're having a really great week with all the announcements, but everyone's kind of like, is it a little too late? You know what I mean? Has the ship sailed for the 3DS? And I think that's still yet to be determined. I think that, they still have a number of really amazing software launches and titles that they haven't come out yet. At this point next year, we'll be able to say if it was a flop or not. Now, the Vita, on the other hand, I think has an amazing lineup coming out for their launch. I think even though it's kind of sucks, for us here in North America,
True.
The launch has been delayed until 2012, I think that it was smart of them to kind of do a test market in their loyal fans in Japan to see how it goes, to work out any potential kinks with production or software that they have, and then they'll go for a worldwide launch, in early next year in North America and Europe. I just this technology is so awesome. It's just so cool. The Vita itself, at first, I have said this a couple of times that I did not want to like this hardware. I looked at the photos of it, I read the specs, I was like, it's just another...
You weren't impressed.
You know what I mean? And no, I wasn't impressed at all. And then I got to E3 and I did like a 4-game demo on it, and I was like, can I take it home with me? And of course it was locked up, so they were like, no, you can't have it. But I loved it. The screen is gorgeous. It's really lightweight. It feels really good in your hands. The gameplay is so innovative. Some of the games that I got to see Little Big Planet, and how they really integrated the back touchpad, the front touch screen, and the internal gyroscope to really be integral into the gameplay. I also got to see a really cool indie game called Sound Shapes, which you may or may not have heard of, and that to me was one of my favorite highlights of E3, was this little indie game on the Vita. And there was also, of course, their big launch title, Uncharted Golden Abyss.
Yes.
Looks gorgeous.
Phenomenal.
It just looks amazing. It takes everything you know and love about Uncharted and puts it in the palm of your hand with these really cool integrated mechanics, because you're working with these special features for the Vita. The only thing that will prevent this piece of hardware from not being a runaway success is the price point. And I know that some people have been complaining, saying, well, $300 is ridiculous to ask for a
You can get a PlayStation 3 now with that.
Exactly. You can get a PlayStation 3 for less than that now. But I think that with what they're bringing, the processing power, the graphics, the software lineup, the ability to use it in conjunction with your PlayStation 3, I think that people are still going to do it. I mean, I'm personally not going to get the 3G model because I just...
You'd rather get the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly. But even at 250, which is what the Vita launched, or the 3DS launched at, I think the Vita is packing so much more punch than the 3DS did. I think you're getting so much more bang for your buck with the Vita than with the 3DS. So I think Sony's going to have no problem selling lots and lots and lots of units.
And with Uncharted on top of that, I think they're going to be very happy along with that. So anyway, we're going to cut this off. We're going to go to another part, guys. Be sure to check out part 3 as I continue to sit down with Andrea Rene.